All right, it's currently 6:02. I'd like to mention that this is a recorded session, so I just wanted to inform everybody about that. And we're just going to go ahead and start and jump into our panelists today. So I'll be the moderator for this, again, for those that have just entered the room. So first we have Dion Butler. He's a 2008 graduate of liberal arts and 2015 graduate of Homeland Security through the World Campus. Dion is currently a network security engineer for Cox Communications. Next, we also have Desmond Lamptey, a 2012 engineer or 2012 graduate of IST and a master software engineer for Capital One. Also on our panel today is Megan Tucker, a 2018 IST graduate and IT business partner at Boeing. And finally, we have Corey Wallace, who is a 2009 IST grad working for DuPont as a operations technology security lead. Welcome everyone, and thank you for taking your time out of your busy evenings to be part of such an amazing panel. Kim is adding our LinkedIn profiles to the chat for anybody who's interested in connecting with any of the panelists. And if you could, we'll go around starting with Dion. Just introduce yourselves and also your pronouns if you like.
How you doing? Dion Butler, as I said, graduated undergrad from Penn State. Left Penn State, was fortunate enough to play 7 years in the NFL, and during the last couple years of that, I did my College of IST World Campus, and that's where I graduated and got that IST, and then moved into the technology field when I left the NFL and get into the security field.
All right, we'll have Desmond next.
Hey everyone, I go by Des, it's short for Desmond. And I graduated Penn State 2012. Out of Penn State, I started working at Capital One, and I've been there ever since. Really great company. I myself am big on travel, so I try to get to a lot of places. My wife and I, we travel like crazy. And favorite place in the world is Cape Town. So if you're ever thinking about a place where you should go to get away, try Cape Town, really fun. And currently, I'm working on my pilot's license. That's one thing I'm trying to come away with at the end of this year.
Awesome. We'll have Megan next.
Hi everybody, I'm Megan Tucker. I graduated from Penn State IST in 2018. From there, I went to Northrop Grumman working as a data engineer for 1 year in their rotational program, and then moved over to Boeing in my current position in 2019 as an IT business partner. So I've been there really ever since then. In my spare time, I'm trying to learn how to ski. So kind of a novice skier right now. But yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you. Last but not least, Corey.
Hey everyone, Corey Wallace, 09 grad out of the College of IST. After graduation, I went to work with British Aerospace Engineering in the security defense industry, and took a role, a lot of cybersecurity roles since. Just recently did my MBA out in Texas, in Austin, and back in Philadelphia now doing some more IT cybersecurity stuff with DuPont. Spare time, I like to go to a lot of Sixers games, and I do a lot of traveling as well. So we can trade notes offline.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing, and what incredible accomplishments you guys have done to date. To share a little bit about myself, my name is Kevin Afoakwah. Like I said, I'm a software engineer at Lockheed Martin. Currently supporting AWS/cloud solutions on a contractor program, and continuously learning and adapting myself. In terms of traveling, definitely taking notes from these guys, because I definitely want to get out of the country real soon. Last time I left the country was 2017. So, but as of recently, traveled to Los Angeles for the first time back in September. So that was pretty cool. Now, some quick housekeeping notes. If you have questions that you want to share with the panelists, please put them in the Q&A chat. We'll be checking those regularly, and Madhavi will be sending those my way for us to answer them for you guys. So we'll start with our very first question, and we'll go around the room. Was there a particular experience, class, or relationship that prepared you for life after college and starting out in your professional career? Dion, you can start us off.
I think it was real good. I had the fortunate opportunity, like I said, of just playing in the NFL. So learning, being a teammate, learning accountability, time management, working under pressure, a lot of those things that literally transfer into the corporate IT world of, I started with operations, something's broke, you're staying on the line until it's fixed. And it was in the banking industry. So that helped out a lot. And then in World Campus as well, just working with people in different time zones, different diversity, different nationalities, just taught me a lot as far as preparing me for once I actually went into the corporate world of just being able to work and be a great team player.
Awesome. Desmond next.
Yeah, I'll add that for me, it was the Career Center. I think one of the things about myself as a senior that I remember mostly is just not really liking to talk about myself much, not really liking to like say, hey, this is what I've done, these are the things I've done. So like the Career Center literally sat me down and helped me learn how to interview. I think that was the, I'm like in a huge, debt to them, huge gratitude to them because of the way they helped me prepare for the interviews that I was gonna go through. And I think in addition to that, some of the things I was able to do while I was at Penn State, like the Black Student Union, being a part of the public relations as a co-chairman, that was huge because it put me in front of people. It put me in front of people where I had to speak and be the person in front of the room, which I hated doing. So like it made me uncomfortable. Those were the biggest things that I learned from just being uncomfortable.
Megan.
So yeah, I'll add on to what Des said. I think the biggest thing for me was like the presentations that we had to do pretty much at the end of every semester when we had those semester-long projects, and really figuring out how to be able to translate kind of IT talk into simplistic terms so that everybody can understand that. That plays a big part in my job right now, just being able to translate what IT status is to higher level executives that might not really know much about it, but be able to translate that and make sure that we're coming across as making progress and getting things done. So I think just being able to learn how to do that and having those at the end of every semester was a huge help.
And Corey.
Yeah, and to that end, a little bit of what both Megan and Dion said, working on a partially distributed team. So, different time zones, diverse group of students, and really identifying how to communicate to individuals who their first language might not even be English. That was really helpful within the IST community. In addition to the talent of translating data into information, because a lot of the individuals that want to utilize whatever data these systems are outputting, they can't understand, the language that is coming out. So being able to transfer that into consumable pieces of information to get the top level jobs done was a very important skill that I picked up in IST.
Perfect. Thank you all for sharing. Definitely, it's important to disseminate information to customers or clients that you're working with in a manner that they understand. And I could definitely vouch for that, even myself as a young professional. All right. Next question, and we'll start with Megan. How are you able to find your community within your organization?
So something that I've noticed a lot of big companies have is like resource groups. And so that's something that I got involved in Boeing. So we have, each site will have their own resource groups for like Black people or Asian people, LGBTQ community, just different groups that you might identify with that you can join. And so when I first started Boeing, I got involved with our Boeing Black Employees Association and kind of joined their exec board, and got to meet a lot of people through that and make connections, and actually met my mentor through that as well. So I think, like I said, a lot of big companies have that. I'm sure smaller companies do as well. But I would highly recommend joining something like that if you have the opportunity.
Corey.
Yeah, ERG groups, even like just early in my career, there's a lot of recreational stuff. So they'd have, different younger employees that would, go and do sports outings or barbecues or something like that after work. But a lot of informal connections help to just set up those groups and kind of build a culture within whatever organization. I switched roles a few times, but it's always been some of those after work, like social connections that built out some authentic relationships.
Dion.
Yeah, touching on what Megan said, at the company I'm at now, at Cox, we have ERGs, and ERGs are a quick, good way to get involved with the company and meet a lot of people, even just outside of your organization, within your company. And I also just, I'm fortunate if I'm a person who I'm comfortable speaking and just being around a lot of different people in a teammate type of situation. I was that person, and I encourage other people to be that person, to be the one when you have someone new, bring them on, like, hey, let's go out to lunch, or even when you're working with a colleague, hey, let's, we worked on this project, but like what Corey said, build those authentic relationships, because that'll go a long way in just you being able to move around in the company and just get to know people, and it makes your work easier. So it's a challenge yourself to be that person. It just takes a little bit of extra effort of just like, hey, we're in the cafeteria in the building, let's go and do this. Or whether it's just a virtual lunch with someone, like take that time out to get to know them. And it doesn't even always have to be about work. Ask them about their family, their kids. Some of us today talked about the things we like to do, talk about your travels, but get to know an authentic relationship with that person. And that just helps you a long way. When you're sending that email and you want a response, if you have a relationship, it comes back a little quicker than if you're just a name on Outlook, trust me.
Very, very true. Des.
Yeah, the last thing I'll add to that, because we talked about business resource groups a little, but the last thing I'll add to that is, let's say you're at a company and maybe there isn't that community that you're looking for. You can download the Meetup app, and on the Meetup app, you might be able to find the exact group that you're looking for. So I remember when I first started, I was looking to get connected with folks who are just starting to learn the cloud and learning AWS. And I would use that as a way to connect with folks who are kind of on the same page as me, trying to figure this stuff out. So I would say, if you can't find that group within your company, you look for it outside of it with something like the Meetup app.
Perfect, definitely gonna download that. All right, moving on to our next question. What do you wish the IST faculty and or staff would have talked about more with you when you were a student? Something you can think would have made a positive difference in your educational experience if you had discussed it with them. And we'll start with Corey.
Yes, that would start with the only one I'll have an answer right off the top. Something I wish the IST group would have discussed more about. Really just the value of kind of utilizing those mentor-mentee relationships within your industry, whether or not it's at your company, or just like using LinkedIn to find some alumni that have the career path that you'd like to emulate. I think really just identifying who some of those resources are that you might have a commonality with in terms of where you want to go, what certifications you want to get, what jobs you want to try to take within your org, how to move up within your org. Just teaching some of those informal conversation skills would have helped upon graduation and taking that first role or two out of college.
Great answer. We'll do Dion next.
I think my situation was a little different in the fact that I didn't do I did my graduate school a little bit after, obviously, college and after my professional career, but it was good that I was able to just go into a situation where, trying to think, now I got caught up like Corey with the answers. With just a situation that I was able to get there and be around other professionals, and just one of the things I wish they would have been able to say, kind of, I guess, like I said, a little different, just a little patience. Me being a little bit older, I thought, oh, I have my master's, I'll just jump right into a security engineering role, security operations role. And if anybody's been through that before, when you're interviewing for those roles, sometimes it seems unrealistic. Hey, we want 2 to 3 years of experience. It's like, I'm just, I have nothing on paper besides, my professional experience that I've had before. So just a little bit of patience, because I was kind of expecting something different. And then it kind of got to a funny situation where I was almost like that movie, I feel like it might be The Intern or something, like a mid to late 20s intern with all these college kids. And it's like, why are you an intern? But it was because my journey was a little different and just a little bit of patience, but I was able to, once I got my foot in that door of IT, then I was able to just move along with just a little bit of patience in the beginning to start off with.
Awesome. Des.
Yeah, I'll add to this that like I think we did a ton of group projects, and I remember that allowed me to like hide behind the scenes a little bit when it was time to present. And I think that doing that a lot, I remember like 3 or 4 times where I would help out a lot during the project, but when it was time to present or be in front of people, I was behind the scenes just shying away from the action. And I think I was avoiding, once again, uncomfortable situations, right? And I think I would have liked more ways to force myself into getting up there and having to deal with those uncomfortable situations, and just being better at explaining really technical concepts in non-technical ways. Megan touched on this a little bit, but being able to communicate after you leave school is a huge skill to have. I think it's almost more important than your hard skills, your technical skills. Communication and your soft skills will take you a long way, and being able to connect with folks and help them understand things that you understand really well, it'll take you a long way. So remember that. And I think the last thing I'll add to it is that understanding that just because you're doing something now in school and you're locked in on it and you're focused on it, doesn't mean that those are the same skills that you're going to apply once you leave school, right? You got to be able to understand that the real world is a little more fluid. It's a little more flexible than that. Don't think that the skills you're learning now are the same ones that you're going to be using. You got to be more adaptable, more flexible. So start to like sharpen yourself, your tools now, but remember that, you know, you could be using different tools once you leave school, and you got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with having to leverage skills that maybe you still haven't fully refined yet.
Definitely agree. Megan.
So this one was a really hard one for me. I thought IST did a great job in talking about a lot of different things and giving you opportunities to kind of put yourself out there and connect with people. I think the one thing I would say is it would have been helpful to kind of talk about the different avenues of IT you can go into and explore, and kind of what happens if you change your mind, if you're on one path, let's say with coding, but you want to switch to something else completely. How to necessarily go about that, because I've kind of found myself in that point and questioning how I would do that. I think internships and rotational programs are really helpful for figuring some of that stuff out. But, you know, if you don't have that opportunity, what you can do, talking about what you can do to kind of get other jobs or opportunities outside of the path that you're on.
Definitely agree with that sentiment there, Megan. Thank you. Wanted to add my 2 cents as well to this, since I'm the most recent grad out of everybody here. I think one thing I wish that faculty or staff spoke to us a little bit more about was external events that sometimes happen, maybe outside of what happens with career fairs or on-site events that companies do. Sometimes there's hackathons and events in which companies would actually expense your flight or your travel to their offices in order to participate in and be able to interact with students from other universities and get some hands-on experience with certain things. So I remember my sophomore year, I attended an event for JP Morgan, and if I had not met one of my senior friends that was in IST at the time, he graduated in 2018, I would have not known about that particular event. And he really encouraged me to join it and to apply for it and see if I have the opportunity to go. And that really, you know, set me up, I think, pretty well for learning how to interview and learning how to interact with people that are different from me. You know, instead of being in a comfortable environment where you know all the students, you know all the staff and faculty, so you're going to act the way you always do. But you kind of have to bring a level of professionalism and a different side of yourself when you are in a new environment. So that hackathon experience was really insightful and gave me, you know, more hardcore coding skills and something that I could attach to my resume, because at the time I didn't have tangible enterprise internship experience. So that really helped out.
Kevin, speaking of like events and such, I wonder, it's been a long time for me, so I wonder if like students are ever given information on like conferences that are happening, especially like there are a bunch of free ones like the AWS reInvent one that just happened and was all virtual. Is that something, do you know if those are shared with students and they get to join in those things?
They definitely are. There's Grace Hopper, there's Wired In's Tapia conference that happens annually as well. And I was actually a recipient of that back in 2019. It was out in San Diego, or was it San Diego? Yeah, San Diego, California. So that was cool, a really fun experience, and very privileged as well to go. And also I was involved with SHEP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, and NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers. I was the vice president for that organization. So those organizations both have their own annual conferences that people can attend. It's a little competitive because only so many people can go, but simultaneously when you're able to get on those trips, it makes a big difference in interviewing, and the companies that come out there specifically are coming to see Black engineers or Black technologists within their field. So it's a good opportunity, and I think the college does a good job of promoting them, because we have Line Careers, Career Services is there as well, always promoting those type of events. So I will say from that avenue, they did a really amazing job.
Kevin, sounds like you're productive, man. I applaud you.
I try. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to our next question. Can you talk about the importance of bringing your authentic self to the table or to the office? And could you share your experience on how being true to who you are at work resulted in a positive outcome? Corey, you can start us off again.
Sure, yeah. So I guess I've been working now for about 10 years, and I know for the first, couple of years, I wasn't bringing my authentic self to work, and it kind of caught up with me after about like the first maybe 3 to 5 or something like that, because when I finally did bring it to work, it was almost weaponized against me. Why aren't you smiling, or why aren't you cheery, or anything like that? And whatever I was portraying wasn't really accepted. And so I kind of made myself a promise that whatever my next roles are going to be in whatever company, that I will walk through the door with it, condition my audience to my personality, because I may be the first, under 30 empowered Black male that they had met in tech. And so they might not be familiar with my mannerisms, cadence of how I speak, just how I work in general. And I think that that's really powerful, Kevin. So like, even when it comes to leading the way and opening the door for those behind you that may be a little bit shy or introverted or nervous about bringing them authentic selves to work, to see a successful example of that in the workplace, I think is really important, especially like in 2022 as we change the workplace dynamics moving forward.
Excellent answer, Dion.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to do that. I can just think about, a couple fronts situations. Just when I started off at a company when I was on the operations team, and we wouldn't, my shift didn't have to do maintenance windows and IT world maintenance window when we had to, do the changes midnight to 6 a.m. or something like that. And just the way I knew about, if it's got my name on it, if a ticket had my name, or like, hey, Dion opened this ticket, we're doing this change for him. Even though we had another team that was supposed to do it, I would wake up during that maintenance window and I'm like, I'm gonna watch it through. I'm gonna make sure it goes through good. And I didn't have to do that. And I remember my manager would call me and like, hey man, you don't gotta wake up and do that. But it's just like, look, this is kind of how I know how I work. And I mean, that led to positive results. And a lot of my changes didn't get kicked back to me the next day, because that's kind of what I didn't want. I didn't want to wake up in the morning and then the change didn't go through and then I'm finding out about it later. And even now I'm in a different role with engineering. We have operations team that does that, and I'll still wake up at times and do that. And that's just kind of my authentic work ethic that I have. And then on the other side of it, just I'm a person, just whether it's just from sports and team, like I'm always trying to build relationships with my teammates, with teammates, my close coworkers, things like that, and even people I don't know as well, coworkers. So for instance, this year I had an event at my house, and it's just, hey, come on over. We're just going to relax, and, we don't have to talk about work. And I think people really enjoy it, and I got a lot of positive feedback from it. And I've done it multiple times, even at happy hour events when we were in the office, but just getting people around each other. And my authentic self is I want to just get around each other, have fun. I want to get to know you. I don't want to always talk IPs and subnets and routing. Like, that's cool during the day, but after this, like, yes, I'm a person who goes out. I'm gonna go to a bar. We're gonna hang out, have food, and have fun and talk about life, talk about concerts, travel, and things like that. And that got a lot of positive feedback, just as far as people like, oh, I would have never known this person. I think a lot of people made relationships through meeting people through me or at events that I had that they would have never done before, and then it's just kind of grown on that. And that, to my authentic self, was just, that's the type of person I am. I'm not just a person who comes into the office and at 5 o'clock I clock out and I don't want to see anybody. You probably have some people like that at work where you're like, hey, you cannot come, but no, but include people. But this is definitely, I like to get people around each other, have a good time, and just get to know each other outside of work, because that helps build the authentic relationship that we talked about before.
Love that answer. I can definitely relate. Megan.
So this is something I think I've had a little bit of trouble with. I work in the defense industry, and so a lot of the people that are also in the defense industry, I think, are just different from my personality. A lot of them are very serious and have been in there for quite a long time. So sometimes it can be hard kind of bring my authentic self and just relating to them and finding some common ground. But I've noticed that when you are able to do that, it really helps to build those connections. And if you do have issues or something that you need help on, then you're then able to reach out to those people and kind of get responses quicker, which is something I think Dion mentioned earlier. And that's also where I think the community question has also played in. Finding that community that you can resonate with and just be your authentic self with has really helped, just to feel comfortable really at work.
Des.
Yeah, so I'm in the same boat as Megan a lot with this particular thing. There's been times where I felt completely comfortable and able to bring my authentic self. There's been times where I just cannot, based on the people who are there and how I feel like they'll perceive it, right? But I think I worry maybe too much about the perception. I'll give you actually an example of a time where I like battled with this particular topic. So after the George Floyd situation, there was a lot of, within the company, there was a lot of meetings to talk about it, right? Just open conversation about it. And I remember our director set up a meeting for us, for our immediate organization, to talk about it, right? And I remember it was just me and maybe another Black person on the call with like maybe 25 other people. So I think it was just 2 Black people on the call, 25 other people, all mixed up. And I remember there was a question like, hey, does anyone have any thoughts, anything that you want to speak up about, right? And I just like sat there with myself, like my authentic self wanted to say so much, but my like face that I had on, like my work self, whatever you want to call it, was just like, leave it alone, don't say anything, right? And that day I decided, hey, I'm gonna speak up, I'm gonna say exactly what's on my mind. And it was received really well. Like people resonated with what I was saying and understood where I was coming from. I just remember the weight of it, feeling like I took a weight off my shoulders. At first I was like, why do I have to be the one to speak up for the entire Black community, right? Why do I have to be the one to say what's on my mind right now? Why can't someone else speak up, right? That's how it felt at the time. But speaking up, I felt the weight come off my shoulders. And that was a time where I remember being my authentic self and it working out for the better. So like, I got to connect more to those types of things because that helps. I realize that when I am my authentic self, I meet the type of people that I want to meet and I'm around the type of people that I want to be around.
I'll just add to that real quick, but I mean, I think that's a great point, and I don't know if he did it that day or another day, but I think being your authentic self is definitely very good, and it's something that you should always be. And I think also, though, it's also important to how you frame that. Like to what Des is saying, what he wanted to say, maybe in that moment, it would have came out wrong, been received wrong. But if you take the time to say, okay, let me see how I want to frame this and still be authentic to I'm still trying to get my message across. I think an important part is how do you deliver messages to a different audience while staying true to exactly the points that you wanted to get across.
Exactly. There's a tough balance you have to do there. And I had to figure it out that day. And I see there's a question in the chat even about it, about how do you balance it? It's tough. It's not easy to do. You have to kind of think through how will this be received, but you also want to you don't want to betray yourself while doing it, right? You want to still be true to yourself. So it was really tough, but I appreciate you adding to that, Dion.
Yeah, thank you guys. Anybody else have additional comments pertaining to balancing your authentic self and also being adaptable in the workplace?
For me, in terms of balancing and being adaptable and speaking to different people, portraying your thoughts to different people, I kind of make sure I lead with my interests, you know, whether it's different types of music or literature or you know, obviously the typical water cooler conversation is television shows and just general events, food festivals that's going on in the community that you're in. But like a lot of those kind of broader topics, yeah, they're still authentic to me. Like I like skiing and I like, you know, different trips, and a lot of those conversations go a long way towards, you know, having those authentic relationships as well. And they're adaptable conversations because you're going to talk to somebody that's, you know, got more experience in these areas than you do, or has a different, you know, like take on some topics, which is adaptable. So it's just bring, like, when I tell my homeboy, when you bring your authentic self to work, like bring all of it. You just don't bring half of it. If it's your work ethic and, you know, your intensity, you also got to bring in, you know, the charming and what you like to cook and all these other things, because like just providing that one dimension of your personality can be a little bit isolating towards your audience.
Great answer. Anybody else? I'll answer this question myself. Definitely bringing your authentic self is important in the workplace. And I've definitely learned that the hard way. It's important to be able to speak about things that aren't technical with your team members and kind of have casual conversation with them, especially during the pandemic. When I first joined my last team a year ago, a lot was going on. Like my entire team was working from home, and then I was like the only one coming into the office. So it was super empty. I didn't know like how to interact with everybody and what the best ways to do that and express myself were. But I feel like it gave me a good opportunity to kind of learn how to reach out to different people. And, you know, as people matriculated back into the office, gave me the chance to meet them in person. Though my team this time around, because my internship, I had more of like a closer bond with everybody since we were all closer in age. When I got into my full-time role, a lot of people were a lot older than me. So, and I ended up being like the youngest person in the office. So it was a little hard to kind of meet people and like befriend them and maybe go out and do things with them. But simultaneously being able to do that in the office is just as important. And doing that, you know, via text or IM, and learning how to speak to others based on, you know, what your interests are, what you have already expressed to them previously. But yeah, I think it's important also, yeah, be adaptable in the sense that, you know, you're always up for a challenge or you're willing to assist. Especially like on my team was a smaller team of software engineers. So it was only at one point, only 4 of us. So I had to really come up to speed with certain things and kind of be a SME when it came to certain applications that we were developing. And so that took a lot of effort and more due diligence on my part to kind of be, kind of take responsibility for my actions and the tickets and the tasks that I had to do. So hope that answers your question. All right, so we don't have any more Q&A questions, so I'll go back to the stock questions that I have. Can any of you guys share one of your proudest / most successful moments in your entire career? And we'll start with me.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there. So I think one of the proudest moments actually came kind of early on in my career. So I started as a data engineer for Northrop Grumman and was working on a project trying to automate a bunch of accounting, manual accounting reports that our accounts payable team was doing. And so when I started that position, I really came in not knowing a lot about SQL, the database language, or just how to do any of that code, how to automate anything, how to use the tools, really just completely starting fresh pretty much. And something that really helped was I had another great mentor at Northrop who kind of sat down with me every day and would teach me kind of more advanced SQL and how to work my way around the different tools and get done what was being asked. And so I think it was a couple months into that first job, he asked me to automate one of the reports by myself, so write the SQL and create the ETL and the dashboard that we were trying to make to simulate the reports that they were doing. And so I was finally able to do that by myself with a little bit of help from him, admittedly, but really just seeing how far I had come and how much I had learned in that kind of short amount of time was something that it made me really happy. So.
Well, Des next.
So there's been a lot of different moments, I'll say. Getting my first promotion, getting the money that I thought I deserved. Those are great moments, but I think my proudest moment was really just getting my mentee hired at Capital One, coaching him through all the different nuances of like interviewing and getting him to like step out of his own shell. I remember seeing a lot of myself in him, so being able to coach him through those moments and coach him through that self-doubt that he had. I remember that being one of the proudest moments because I felt like I had helped someone else get to something that they really wanted. So I would say, like, to add on to that, once you do leave school and you start working and doing other things, remember to help other people, right? Remember to help other people avoid the mistakes that you've made. I think that'll help you really get that that sense of self fulfillment. And if you're looking for ways to do that, I think mentoring other people is a huge way to do it.
Very important. Dion.
There's some problems there. How did say that question one more time for me, Kevin, just so I make sure I got it right.
No problem, Dion. Can you share one of your proudest / most successful moments in your career?
Okay. Yeah, I would say that was probably a situation where from one of the first companies I was working at, I felt there was an opportunity for me to grow, a lot of opportunity for me to grow, and I felt I was ready for the next level, for the next step. And I kind of been putting a plan together for a long time, kind of been, at my manager's door the whole time. And, I felt like they kept giving me the runaround, didn't want to put things on paper, because then if they put it on paper, I would hit that mark and then they would just come up with something else that wasn't on that piece of paper. And, oh, you weren't ready to be this. And in so many words, they basically just told me like, hey, you're not ready to go to the next level. And, if you leave this company, I don't want you to be like someone else who's left and then you come back in a lower role, which is kind of like a slap in the face, honestly, to me. I was like, wow, okay, that's how we're feeling about this. But basically all that to say, then I went and literally first interview that I did for the next level up for an external opportunity, nailed it, got an offer and accepted that job. And that was just something for me, I was just very proud of the resilience, because honestly, at that point in time, they had me thinking like, maybe I'm not, as good as I think, because they've been here X amount of time, they're managers, directors, and things like that. So maybe they know. And I just had to basically take a leap of faith of like, no, I'm gonna be confident in what I believe I know, and not be afraid to go out there and, take an interview. And like I said, fortunate, very first interview, and knocked it out the park, got the offer. And it was literally just kind of a see, I told you so moment, but also just kind of taught me just like, hey, don't doubt yourself, because there'll be other people, and who knows if they had ulterior motives just to keep me there and didn't want me to, get to a new pay raise, kind of like Des says, of what I deserved. But just keeping that confidence in yourself. But that was a very proud moment, because I literally walked out that interview and I literally was just so hyped, so hyped that I did that, because like I said, they had me thinking I was literally gonna go in there and just bomb it, like I didn't know what I was doing.
Happy to hear that success story. Corey.
Yeah, so my proudest moment in my career actually occurred while I was in grad school doing my MBA. So I was in the Macomb School of Business out in Texas, and was in charge of putting together a diversity, equity, and inclusion conference for the school and for the city, which was wild because, you know, as like buzzy as diversity, equity, and inclusion are, not everybody likes to stand on that when it comes to, you know, building it, putting their brand on it, talking towards some of those type of issues, and which made it very challenging. But we put together a conference that included a number of guest speakers. Had the chief operating officer from Wikipedia, who was really there just speaking towards like why it's important to have diverse voices in the room when you're building out artificial intelligence platforms, because, you know, if you ask Alexa in some other language, it's got to respond to you in that language about, you know, your home's food and things like that. And bringing in different people from Dell and Google to talk about, you know, why these pronouns within the LGBTQ community are important, or intergenerational leadership, more or less the problems that we deal with, like, you know, the lack of opportunities for Black males and Black women in the community. And we were able to build out a whole conference and, you know, sell about 250 tickets, raised $40,000 to put it on, and gave out about $10,000 in scholarship money. That is my proudest accomplishment.
Outstanding. Thank you. All right, and Megan mentioned mentorship. And also I think this goes and corresponds with sponsorship as well, which I've also been hearing a lot more. But were there any mentors that you all looked up to during your careers, and how did they kind of help pave the way for you to get to the position that you're at now? Did they help you get that raise or get that that next position up? And how did you kind of use the experiences that they went through to craft your own career path?
I got one. I met a good mentor during my internship, who was a software engineer. He was a consultant for this company on Wyeth Pharmaceuticals. He was a programmer by day, and also was coding on some DJ equipment software by night. So he would like build his own DJ platform and go out and would actually perform. And I was watching him and just how he utilized his professional skills to build out in personal endeavors and utilize the rest of his personality in whatever his external endeavors were, but still come back and maintain the quality relationships inside the office. He was kind of instrumental in just like demonstrating that, you know, your knowledge and skill set does not have to be utilized one-dimensionally, and kind of like provided a lot of insight on how to, you know, flip it into other arenas.
I'll go on that too, as far as being on the West Coast when I played for Seattle. So I played for Seahawks, and Paul Allen's the owner of the team. Of course, he founded, you know, Microsoft, Bill Gates. So all his friends are in that, you know, big money club. So he would have all his friends just kind of come by the building. They would just hang out. And Mr. Nordstrom, who the Nordstrom store, he would always fly his plane that would land on the lake, and he would just come and eat lunch just like a normal person, just sit there and talk with them. And these are some of the actually most valuable times. Talk to a lot of CEOs, a lot of celebrities. But I just remember having lunches with him. He would always talk about your brand. And it was always about, you know, his example would be like, you know, he would obviously say Nordstrom, but he would also say, you know, Pepsi or a Coke, whether you're in Japan, whether you're in America, whether you're in the islands, you know what to expect from a Pepsi or a Coke. Like, they have a brand, and treat yourself like a brand. So whenever you show up, and that can go in all phases of life. So when you show up, what kind of work do you do? It doesn't matter what's going on around you. People could be like, hey, I'm gonna get off early today. So whatever it is, but it's like, hey, do you come up and do you show up for work every day? Do people know, hey, when I'm talking to Des, Megan, Corey, Kevin, do I know what type of work I'm gonna get from them if I ask? You know, and that stuck with me just as far as building my brand and like, okay, every day coming in and along with being my authentic self, but hey, I'm also going to give you, hard work, and I'm going to show up and, hey, even if I don't know it, I'm going to find someone who does know it, who can help me figure it out. And then I'll get you the answer, or I'll put you in touch. Because not all the time, honestly, is it about you knowing. It's about knowing the right people, which we also, I feel like, talked about as far as building those relationships at work, because it might be, hey, you're actually talking to the wrong person, not me. You need to get in touch with this person. I link you on an email, and now I've given you, the way you need to go. So just building that brand and being someone they can trust and things like that. But just Mr. Nordstrom, definitely just on building that brand and being who you are, no matter what, lights on, lights out. That was big. It's just as far as that just carried over from sports right into corporate world and just in life in general.
Super insightful answers. Anybody else?
So I'll just add quickly, that's really hard to follow up from. But just quickly, I think since I did mention, I've had a couple mentors, especially the one that I have now. He's been really helpful just in helping me navigate the company, since I am still kind of new, and who the different people are, kind of how to make relationships with different people, because I do have the goal of moving up at some point. And so I've just kind of been watching him and how he works, who he talks to, and with the different issues that he's run into, kind of trying to learn from those and see if there's some way that I might be able to do things differently in order to try to get to the point where I want to get to. So he's been really helpful in terms of just navigating kind of my career path.
Yeah, my mentor or sponsor, whatever we want to call it, has been huge in just helping me understand that like no one is going to advocate for me more than me. So kind of in that same avenue that Dion's talking about having a brand, my mentor has helped me see that, hey, like just because you're doing great or you're doing this and that doesn't mean that people know about it. Doesn't mean that people are paying attention. So you have to be your biggest advocate. You have to go and speak up for the things you want. And I remember maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was telling him, hey, I got passed up for a promotion for a second time in a row. What am I doing wrong, right? And he asked me a simple question. He asked me, well, did you talk to your manager specifically about what you want and why you want it? Did you advocate for yourself, right? And I had no answer for him, right? So I think at the least, what he's done for me is help me understand that this thing that I tend to do where I'll think that my work speaks for itself and I don't really like talking about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and my achievements. It doesn't really work often in the workplace. You got to speak up for yourself. You got to say, hey, these are the things I'm doing. This is why I think I deserve what I deserve.
Definitely being your biggest advocate is a really important skill and thing to always remember, especially when you're interviewing, especially when you're on the job. Be able to advocate for your skill sets, and if you don't know something, be able and willing to learn. So definitely the biggest sentiment out of that. Cool. Next question that I have, how have any of you guys experienced imposter syndrome, and how did you work around that? Anybody can take the floor.
What was the question again? Do we experience, I'm sorry, I missed the word.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah, sorry about that. I just got a call.
So I can go first. That's definitely something that I experience pretty frequently. I think just kind of typically being the younger person in the room amongst more experienced people, sometimes I feel like because I don't have that experience, it can equate to me not necessarily knowing what I'm doing. So really experiencing imposter syndrome. But the way that I try to navigate around that is just by looking at the different accomplishments that I have had in my career and just knowing that sometimes I can be my own worst enemy. Just because I'm thinking that doesn't mean everybody in the room is thinking that. So you just kind of have to realize that just because you're having these thoughts, it doesn't mean they're necessarily true.
Yeah, 100%, Megan. I think a lot of times we're often our biggest critic, and sometimes the criticism isn't deserved, right? I think sometimes we over criticize ourselves and we don't really pay attention to some of the accomplishments or the achievements we've been able to hit, because we're always moving the goalposts, right? We'll do something and we're like, okay, now what's next? And that's part of the reason why I've dealt with imposter syndrome myself, is just always kind of like measuring the room, seeing who's in there, and thinking, oh, well, this person has done more than me, or this person knows this more than me. So that means I should probably not speak up as much, right? And that's not the right way to think of it. That's not the right way to approach it. You gotta come to the room with confidence. And I think it's something that I'll probably be dealing with for the rest of my career. Every time I'm given a new challenge, a new opportunity, I'm always gonna second guess whether I'm ready for it, right? But you gotta understand that after you've had that sense, that feeling, you can move it to the side and let your confidence show and shine brighter than the lack of confidence or the imposter syndrome that we're using.
Yeah, I think that's big, both of what they've touched on, because I'm also in a field where the people I work with, they've been in IT for 30 years, you know, sometimes longer than I've been alive. And it's just kind of like, we'll look to compare ourselves to, you know, I always just remember like situations where, hey, well, you know, they want this, and they'll just know off the top of their head. And it's like, I feel like I'm always a person like, is there documentation for that? Like, how would I know that? No, you'll get it. And it's like, because you've been working here 15 years, you just know, oh, you were on the original project. So you get that sense of like, man, I don't even know what I'm doing here, because they just know. But you got to understand that they also had a journey to get there as well. And we'll, you know, always think about the end result. We look at where they're at now, and we don't think about at some point in time they were where we were, you know. And then they're just, people just grow up different. You know, a lot of people even that I work with, they grew up building computers. It's like, man, I was in the street playing ball. Like, I just started learning about computers and doing this. But if you grew up doing that, perfect. That's your authentic self. My authentic self was I wasn't building computers. So, you know, we all have different journeys, and we all respect that, though. I feel like you just be open to that. But just understanding that every person has a journey to how they got there, and your journey is no different. And, you know, 5 years from now, when someone's going to look at you and they're going to think that of you, like, oh man, how do you know that? And you're going to remember. So I feel like we talked about, and I saw someone make a comment about the mentoring, always give back and share that. So you make people feel comfortable, because we understand where we felt like that at that situation. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know where I'll ever get to that point. So always give back and let people know it's a journey. You're going to get there, and just give them the tools to get to that point.
So my first job was as a systems engineer with the British Aerospace, and I graduated college in IST, which somebody told me was going to be perfect prep for systems engineer. They ain't lie, but it was not a one-to-one. So I was kind of an actual imposter. And I always had like a good work ethic and everything, but the best way I've ever defeated imposter syndrome is this with fake it till you make it. That just being able to walk into a room and build yourself up the confidence to ask the questions, or, you know, challenge thought, or just extract information and work on the back end to get it right. Just bring that, whatever that is, to any situation, commanding your space in the room, and, you know, putting the work in behind closed doors. Eventually you look up one day and you're exactly where you want to be. So it just comes with that confidence and hard work.
Absolutely. And just to include a little bit of my thoughts, I've had those instances definitely early in my career, feeling kind of lost, in the sense that I don't know all these acronyms. I don't know all these key terms and buzzwords. I literally created an entire OneNote document just of acronyms, just of like abbreviations of certain programs and technologies and applications that we use. It was super overwhelming at the beginning, and having to learn and pick up all those things simultaneously was really, really difficult. And luckily, you know, I had a lot of team members on my team willing to assist me one-on-one, taking time out of their day to do that. Sometimes I felt like I was an annoyance. So, and it's crazy because I'm usually more vocal and outgoing and taking the lead on things, but because these people have 20+ years experience on me, I can't do that. And so their word goes above mine for the most part. but it doesn't mean that I can't use that as a insightful learning experience and use that so that way once I'm at their point or their caliber of knowledge, that I can kind of influence and give back to other people who are new in their career field as well. So yeah, so I guess one thing from my recent program that I was just on is be more vocal and ask questions. It doesn't matter how ridiculous it is. It doesn't matter if it's out of scope from what you're doing. It's important to kind of think outside of the broader things that you're working on. And even those type of things I brought to the attention of engineers that are 20 plus years ahead of me, and some of them couldn't catch some of the nuances and errors that we'd find, and I would find it, and it would contribute to the greater cause of the team. So definitely don't ever think that your efforts are in vain or minuscule compared to the rest of your team just because you have one year of experience and everybody else has 25 plus years spitting out acronyms and you're not knowing exactly what they're saying. But as long as you're taking notes and being attentive, I think that will take you really far.
And I actually say on top of that too, just taking those notes and asking those questions. Don't be afraid to ask those questions and then turn that into documentation. Because honestly, I guarantee if you've got that question, somebody else probably had that question and they might have been afraid to ask it. And then you can take that and you spin that with your brand of, okay, now I'm documenting this and now I'm showing leadership or whatever you want to call it. And now for the next person that comes in, here's a document so you don't have all these questions. Because I've definitely been on calls where it's been 15, 20 minutes. And I'm like, hey, at minute 2, we talked about XYZ. What was that acronym? We talked about a whole nother thing, but I'm stuck on minute 2. Like, what acronym was that? Like, I know that's not the important thing here, but I'm lost. I'm still there. So yeah, definitely just take those opportunities, document things. I know I try to do that now at the company I'm at, just because someone else definitely has those questions. And then, like I said, you take that and you turn that and build your brand on. You're not just someone who's going to also be like, hey, now you'll just get it once you get, no, actually I have a document for that. Here you go. And now everybody else after me can, not go through the struggle I went through. You change that process, change that mindset.
Definitely agree with that. Documentation is 100% how you get ahead and up to speed with things. So putting it in words, simplistic for a new person or a new user coming onto a system helps them out tremendously. Well, if there's no additional thoughts, well, are there additional thoughts from the panelists?
I just want to end with, I just think it was great that we talked about earlier. I think everybody touched on it, just being able to, especially in this IT world, take this IT talk and make it simple, because you'll rarely in my work, am I working with another like network firewall engineer. I might work with an application engineer and they're very technical in their application, but they're not technical in what I know. So, and I'm not technical in what he knows, and we talk in 2 different languages. And I've seen plenty of times, which I'm sure all of the panelists, where 2 people are talking and you're like, y'all don't understand each other, and you don't even know how to break it down for them to understand it. And that's very frustrating. And it's just hard to, it's hard to do, but that's a skill set. If I could say one thing leading off here is just definitely find those soft skills to be able to translate IT in whatever industry IT you're in, whether it's application, hardware, software, being able to talk to different people and make it simplistic, because I think Megan touched on it earlier, when you're talking to higher ups, their job is not to be in the weeds with IT. They kind of care about the metrics. So you funnel your conversation to the metrics. They care about, risks, prevention, loss, gain, whatever it is, just make it, be able to talk to it and make it simple, and it'll go a long way for people understanding you and liking to work with you when they feel like they can understand you, as opposed to when you're just kind of spitting out IT talk and they have no clue what that means and they're just gonna say, okay.
Absolutely, definitely agree with that. Thank you for ending that off for us, Dion. Thank you everybody for participating, and thank you so much to our panelists for taking time and paving the way for all of us. Please look out for future information on future IST identity talks that will occur on the IST website, and be sure to also view past recorded events such as this one. Everybody have an amazing evening, and we are.